Oh, those are gonna float around in here for an hour. These are the top mistakes made while hunting public land. Okay, public land hunters are known for messing things up, or at least I am known for messing things up, and I hunt a lot of public land, okay? And when I mess up, the first thing I say is, "Dadgummit."
Dadgummit, that's what you say.
Dadgummit, it is! So, if you feel like you just can't get over that feeling sometimes, get you a dadgummit shirt. That way you don't have to actually say it out loud.
You'll feel so much better when you have this shirt on. Believe me.
That's right. All right, mistake number 1. I think that public land hunters hunt too high.
You mean Joe Rogan?
Maybe not that kind of high.
Okay.
But I think that public land hunters are all the time concerned with getting up really high in a tree. And I can tell you that I have killed and had a lot of really good encounters with deer at about 2 sticks high. 10, 11, 12 feet for your platform. Perfect for hunting public land for a couple of reasons. A, you don't have to carry as much stuff. B, your shots are actually better. A lot of times, if you get 18, 20 foot up in a tree, you end up having canopy and leaves and limbs in your way, and you only have kind of these closer shots. If you're up 10, 11, 12 foot, you have longer shots, you can see better. It's just a much better hunting setup.
Also, your shot angles on the deer for the target have a better chance of getting a double lung. So it's a good tip, man. Another one that I would throw in there is that a lot of people don't measure the distance to a spot they want to hunt after map scouting before they actually go in. And I think that's a big mistake for a couple of reasons. One thing is, you know, last year we found ourselves on a pretty open piece of public, and we were looking, is a big piece, and we're looking for different places. We find a place where, like, oh, that sets up really good, and it doesn't look too far from the road, right? And then you measure it, and it's like 1.9 miles, and you're like, man, that's a all-day type of distance. You know what I mean? And we don't want to hunt all day because it's hot or whatever. So that's one way that can go. Another way that can go is you think it may be in like a big wood situation or something like that where there's lots of people around, say Wisconsin or something like that, lots of hunters there, right? You find you a spot, you're like, that looks like a great spot on this map, and then you just walk into it. Well, it ends up being that even though it may seem like it's a good distance because you're walking through vines and stuff like that, it's actually only 4/10 of a mile, and there are a lot of dudes hunting within a half mile of the road.
How are you measuring those distances?
So one way you can do that that's easy is you can use the line distance measurement. It's a tool on OnX, or you can go to a waypoint and you can actually make a radius around a certain waypoint to know everything past this waypoint is, or this radius is half mile or something like that, so you're good to go when it comes to hunting in areas that are pressured.
Another thing that public land hunters over concern themselves with is the weight and the intricacy of their mobile hunting setup. Granted, we are saddle hunting guys, all right? If we're not hunting on the ground, we're hunting out of a saddle, and it's awesome. I love it. But I know that there are not many killers out there that just go on and on about one sticking and no sticking and double sticking and roping and you get what I'm saying, right? There's this concept of, well, I don't get to hunt a lot, so I'm gonna make sure my gear is like really cool and intricate, and that's fun. I get it, all right? And it's really neat to be really lightweight and to go in and feel real confident in your mobile setup. However, you don't really have to worry about weight that much, dude. We're not backpacking in 7 miles into, you know, the wilderness area to hunt elk, right? Like, we're going in a half mile, 3/4 of a mile, something like that. You know, be a man and just carry what you need to do stuff. It sounds kind of funny, but it's true. Like, it's real easy for me to carry 4 sticks and a saddle. It's not complicated. They go in the tree real easy. They don't, like, you know, zip tie together and have 7 different types of paracord wrapped around. Like, it's just
Taters, sweaters, potatoes, persuaders.
Yeah, tomatoes, all that stuff, dude. Like, you just don't have to overcomplicate things, because what you end up doing is you end up sitting at the tree trying to, like, do your mobile hunting setup thing when you need to be in the tree getting ready for deer to come by.
Yeah, so I mean, you're saying simplify the setup, even if it's kind of heavy, just get in there, get set up.
Yeah, I would go heavy, you know, don't carry 25-pound sticks like Hunter did a couple years ago, but, you know, just get you something that works and just don't overcomplicate it, right?
Yeah.
Don't think you have to cut ounces. It's just not really a thing that helps you kill deer.
Yeah, and depending on where you hunt, a hackberry, you may need to be 8 foot up in a tree, right? So it's not a big deal. If you're hunting in pine country, then maybe you can think about those tomatoes and persuaders and all those things. So another mistake that a lot of guys make when we're talking about mobile hunting especially is moving around too much. You know, as public land hunters, we like to think we have to almost have this game against the deer and also this game against people sometimes. So you're always thinking like, how can I be in a spot where the deer are going to be and where people aren't going to be? And you're always scheming, right? And what you end up doing a lot of times is, okay, I'm going to hunt here in the morning and then I'm going to pull down, get everything out, go eat lunch, and hunt there in the afternoon. And what you end up hunting is deer that are a lot of times only in a certain spot for every 4 to 5 days or something like that, and you miss them because you're hopping around. And we know a lot of guys, especially one that I can think of that hunts, fairly local here in Texas. He is a killer, kills every year pretty much on public, kills a nice buck, which is on a place that's really hard to do such. And he does that by hunting a good area where he knows deer around and big bucks around, and he hunts it consistently. And he has this saying that's pretty funny, but he said, when the wind blows out of the direction that you don't feel like is the way it's supposed to be blowing, just turn and face into it, basically.
Look the other way.
He said, look the other way.
That's a little bit of a in-fault type thing, like beast mode, or not beast mode, what's it called? Hunting beast type thing, or beast tactics, where like you hunt the same place over and over again and the big buck does show up. Like it's a thing that does work, and I think that we get in this deal where we try to like outsmart ourselves and double or question what we do. And one of the things that ends up happening is you end up bouncing around to a whole lot of different spots, and you end up in a new spot because you found it on X and you're like, I'm gonna go try that. And if it's a morning, you're picking your spot in the dark and you're picking your tree in the dark, and that is a mistake. Okay, it is a bad thing to do. If you've never seen the tree and you're hunting in a new area and there's a lot of trees around, like you can climb up a tree and think it's really awesome. I did this last year in Oklahoma, and then the sun comes up and then all of a sudden you realize, man, I have hardly any shots out of this tree. And then you have a big public land buck walk about 22 yards from you and you can't shoot him. That's really fun. And get no footage of it, by the way. So maybe we're rolling a B-roll clip of some blurry trees right now. I don't know. But it's a mistake, okay? Like, I realize it's a necessity sometimes, and you have to weigh out, what is important and what you must do. But I definitely do not like and would not encourage you to go in blind to a place in the dark and try to find a tree, if at all possible.
Yeah. So another mistake is that a lot of guys will hunt these public spots with one great spot that they map scouted in mind and think that is a place, like a live or die place. Like they just feel so confident in that spot, and they love it so much for the 3 or 4 variables that they put together that feel right, that they forget that other dudes can do the same thing. And so when you show up to a spot and there's a guy in the parking area and there's really just one little strip of timber by this creek, that dude's probably in a spot, or you're gonna pass by him to get to your spot, which is kind of inconsiderate in a lot of ways. Not that you don't do that in any situation necessarily, but my point is you need a plan B or multiple plans really in any situation. You want to have spots picked out, so when you're going out to a new place or a new state or even your favorite place, it'd be good to have like 3, maybe 4 spots that work on that wind that can be advantageous for you. And if you get to go to your number 1 spot, you still feel pretty confident about the hunt and spending time out there away from your family.
Yeah, nothing like Jimmy Orange Hat to just kind of change your plans.
It can happen, man.
It can happen quick, okay? One of the things that guys do that hunt public land, especially public land that's kind of close to home, they sometimes over-concern themselves and rely on trail cameras too much. Now, granted, I do like me some trail camera pictures of some big bucks. I'm all about that stuff, right? It's fun, it's exciting, gets you pumped about the woods, but it actually can handicap you in a couple different ways. If you're not running cell cams, then you could end up spending a lot of time going into places, pulling cards, boogering deer, all that stuff, because you're going into places and intruding when you don't really need to be. We use Moultrie cell cams and don't really have to worry with that too much, except for the hanging of the camera and maybe changing out batteries once a season or something. So not as much of a concern, and I still do like those in certain applications. But the other thing that trail cameras can do to you is they can kind of make you not shoot deer. As weird as that sounds. Like, Here's a scenario for you. KC Hunter goes to Texas Public Land and hangs a trail camera. He then goes checks that trail camera and gets a 147-inch 9-point, which is a toad for Texas Public Land, on that camera once. It is a public land ghost at that time, okay? And it's not even in daylight, and it's a little blurry, okay? But he's so enthralled with that picture of that big buck that he passes 2 125s that season and does not shoot a buck. That happens often, okay? Don't let those trail camera pictures handicap you into not shooting a buck this season.
Yeah. In the same way, don't let a spot, because you haven't seen a buck show up, not be hunted, right? To see it in person, to see the way the deer move through there at least one time can really like open your eyes to the fact that your trail camera's pointed in the wrong direction,
Yes.
right? So with that, we are moving around. We're mobile hunters when we're public, and you know, we've talked about that can be a mistake. But another mistake you can make as a mobile hunter is basically not hunting areas that have foolproof, bulletproof access, or just disregarding access as a big, you know, positive to a hunt, basically. And knowing that where your wind is blowing when you're sitting in the tree is equally as important as where your wind blew when you were headed in. So if you let a deer know that you're going to be in there hunting him, and we've seen this in Texas where if you don't access it right, these places are hunted hard. Some of the places we hunt in Texas especially, and dudes hunt it all year. And these deer understand that if they come across a track of a dude walking in and they smell it, they can tell fairly how fresh it is, and they know that they're in there being hunted, and it's going to change the way that they behave. And they smell stuff like that every Saturday sometimes. So you have to be sure that you walk in correctly, you don't brush the wrong vegetation, and also that your wind isn't blowing into where you assume a deer is bedding, even if it's does. Sometimes, like in the rut, we're relying on does to bring bucks past us. Sometimes buck bedding isn't the only thing, it's doe bedding as well. So just make sure that you have good access in and out. And if you do that, then we can go back to the fact that moving around can be not the best thing. Sitting a good spot that has good bulletproof wind access can also be a good thing. Now granted, we are moving around most of the time, so I don't want to act like that's how we hunt, but sometimes it's good to be consistent in a spot, because you give yourself enough days in a stand where a deer comes through every few days, you're gonna make it happen. I had that happen in 2015 with One Eye Jack. I hunted a spot 5 days in a row, had good access from the road, and it worked out, and I've shot a really nice buck with my bow at 15 yards. I love when stuff like that happens. But
do you remember we were bow hunting in Iowa in 2019? We were accessing a place because we saw a big buck, and then we jumped a buck on the access. How did that make you feel?
Very sad.
You know what I said when that happened?
Forget about it.
Dadgummit. I said, dadgummit.
Okay.
And if you feel that way, all right, sometimes in the woods you just got to say dadgummit. You know why? Because you don't want to say worse words than that. Say good words, right? So dadgummit. Get you one of these dadgummit public land buck shirts. This buck right here is a buck that we were hunting on the ground one time, jumped the fence, and made me say dadgummit 100 times because he was huge. You should check out these shirts on the Element website, theelementwild.com. Check out the season playlist if you haven't. You can see a lot of our mistakes, but a whole bunch of our successes as well.